Good afternoon from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. I'm NASA's Josh Byerly. Well, as you can see from the empty launch pad outside and the smiles in the room, Antares and Cygnus are on their way to the International Space Station. Launch took place at 10:58 a.m. Eastern Time today, 9:58 a.m. Central Time. Rendezvous now set with the space station for September 22nd. And here to talk about today's launch and what's ahead for the vehicle, as well as NASA and Orbital, is our panel. We're joined by Robert Lightfoot, NASA Associate Administrator from NASA Headquarters. We also have Alan Lindemoyer, NASA's Commercial Crew and Cargo Program Manager. And we're also joined by Frank Culbertson, Executive Vice President of Orbital Sciences. We'll hear from each one of them, then we'll take some questions. I'm sure it's going to be a good day for everybody. So, Mr. Lightfoot.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it, and thank you all for being here. Very exciting day for us. First of all, I want to pass on that I've got word from Administrator Charlie Bolden, congratulating Orbital Science for a successful launch, and congratulating the NASA team and the partnership that we worked alongside these guys to make this successful. Good day for us. For the launch today, you know, Orbital Science is now accomplishing one of our critical spaceflight objectives that we want. The maiden voyage of Cygnus going to the International Space Station here in Virginia, in partnership with the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport folks. This is a good day. Orbital is now one of the two carriers for us to supply cargo and the things we need for the International Space Station. And as you know, the International Space Station is our key piece right now for human exploration. We want to get that station utilized as much as we can, and by having the extra cargo capability that Orbital is going to bring with Cygnus, it allows us to do more and more of the experiments and science that we want to do to continue our pursuit of human exploration beyond low Earth orbit. So the station remains that springboard for us, and with this successful mission, you know, super excited about what that opens up for us as an agency. We look forward to the rendezvous with the station on Sunday, and with that, we'll have Orbital joining SpaceX as one of our providers to take care of this for us. You know, if we needed more tangible proof of this is a new era of exploration, it's right here, right now, right here in Virginia. The continuing success of our commercial partners and what they're doing to help us advance the goals of human spaceflight exploration. So with that, let me turn it over to the folks that really know what's been going on, the ones that have been working so hard, and give you more detail on the mission and what you should expect to see in the days and weeks to come.
All right, thank you, Robert. This is another historic day for commercial spaceflight. Very proud day for NASA, and an amazing accomplishment for our partner Orbital Sciences. Congratulations to the entire team.
Thanks, Alan.
Frank,
thanks for all you've done.
Operated flawlessly. The teams came together beautifully today for a picture-perfect launch of the Antares and sending our brand new spacecraft Cygnus on its way to the space station. So we are certainly looking forward to the arrival of Cygnus Sunday morning and the completion of what has begun to be a absolutely beautiful mission.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Alan.
Over to you.
You don't have 6 charts?
No charts today.
Well, this is a very exciting day for us, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of happy people in the control center, a lot of happy people all over the Orbital campuses, and a lot of people here at Wallops are smiling and very excited. I'm going to show a quick video, but before I do want to say thanks to the entire team that contributed to this. Obviously, the folks in Orbital that built and designed the rocket. The spacecraft is working really well right now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. The Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport team and the state of Virginia, we really appreciate all their hard work in renovating the pad after the last launch and getting it ready and making improvements, which allowed us to get through this. We worked closely with the FAA to get through the launch approval. That's never an easy task because there's a lot of things that have to be considered, and we appreciate them working those issues hard. And of course, we certainly appreciate the hospitality of Wallops Flight Facility and all the people here who worked so hard to make this happen. It was a real partnership. We also had a lot of support from NASA headquarters. They showed up today to help. Is what they said. Thanks, Robert. But they were here and they were helpful, and they have been all along, as well as the International Space Station program, who is, of course, the recipient of these services that we're going to be providing. And as Robert said, it's very important to the future of the space station, which we certainly recognize and understand, and we are committed to making sure that the space station is able to continue, be functional, and be productive for the long term. I think we have a little bit of video of the launch, and if we could roll that, Tony. You can see the moment of liftoff there. We do a little maneuver to make sure that we don't damage the transporter erector as we lift off, but it looked very steady, and always a good feeling in mission control when you have a clean ignition and it clears the tower. It accelerated pretty much by the book, and it was right on the trajectory planned. Everything looked very smooth inside, and our chief engineer, Mike Dorsch, actually learned a few words besides nominal for this one. And but Mike does a great job of describing it and where we were. We had the rocket cam operating for part of the launch. It didn't last the entire ascent, but as you'll see in a moment, and I'm not sure if this is abbreviated or not, but we had a very clean MECO, right on target, actually a little bit high, which is okay, and then a good separation, and the second stage burned flawlessly, took us into orbit. We had a great fairing separation, which we always look forward to, as well as the fairing adapter prior to that. We coast for a little while after second stage shuts down in order to make sure that everything is stable, and then we separate the Cygnus about 10 minutes after liftoff. We don't have a lot of video, a lot of data normally at that time, but we did manage to pick up a little bit of data through TDRS, and we could see that it was stable, and we have since had good lock with the spacecraft, and the status is all great. The solar arrays have deployed. We're getting good power from them. The prop system has activated. We're getting good stable control of the spacecraft, and it's pointing towards the sun and getting ready to execute the maneuvers that will take it to the International Space Station in about 4 days. And we can stop the video there, I think. You'll have a chance to see it over and over on NASA TV if you want. And I hope you do. The spacecraft, of course, is loaded with about 700 kilograms of cargo. I'll point out this is the most cargo delivered by a commercial spacecraft to orbit to date. And you can do whatever math and history checking you want to. But 700 kilograms is a good bit of cargo to demonstrate that capability. Our next mission is coming up in December. Between December 8th and December 21st is our target. And we'll deliver almost 1,300 kilograms at that time, maybe more if NASA comes up with some requirements. So we'll be ready to go before the end of the year to deliver again. This was hard. It's difficult to get a rocket off of a launch pad. There's a lot of things that have to come together, no matter how many times you do it, what type of rocket it is, and what type of team you have. It's complicated. The systems are complex, and there's a lot of factors outside your control, such as weather, that you have to deal with. But it all came together because the team knows how to work these issues, knows how to work these problems. And by the team, I mean the combined team of all the organizations involved, government and industry. This is the way of the future. This is how we're going to have to operate going forward in order to maintain a robust space program. And I think we're demonstrating it can be done. But this was just step one of the hard part. Step two is coming up as we begin the rendezvous and the maneuvers to get to the station to demonstrate that we can, in fact, control the spacecraft. And we'll be doing that over the next 3 days. Shortly after midnight on the 22nd, Sunday morning, we will begin the approach to the station. We'll come from underneath and in gradual steps, getting closer and closer, working in conjunction with Mission Control Center in Houston. Our team in Dulles will control the spacecraft. Monitor the activity, and then when we reach what we call the R bar, which is the line directly below the station pointing towards the center of the Earth, we will begin our final approach to the station. We'll do a couple of approaches and retreats, so if you see us go up and down, don't worry, it's part of the plan. And then when we get inside 200 meters, we will continue autonomously to a point about 10 meters below the station. At that point, the crew will command us to free drift, and we will sit there until they grapple us with the robotic arm, the Canadian arm, and then they'll maneuver the spacecraft to the bottom of the Node 2, the nadir port, and attach us using the standard common berthing mechanism that all modules have been used to attach to the U.S. segment. We're really looking forward to that day, but it's going to be a long day for all the teams involved. And we may or may not get to the point where we can, after berthing and after pressure checks, where we can open the hatch and check the cargo. If not, we'll do it the next day, first thing, and the crew will have a chance to take a look at what we've sent to them and start unloading. Shortly after they've unloaded everything, they'll probably start reloading disposable cargo over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then after about 30 days on orbit, we'll detach from the station, be released by the robotic arm, and then do what we call a destructive reentry, where everything on board, almost everything on board, will burn up during the reentry and be disposed of. So it's going to be an exciting and fascinating and interesting time for everybody involved. That'll terminate in mid-October, actually third week in October, with that reentry. In the meantime, our team here at Wallops, our Antares team, and our Cygnus team, actually, we're going to give them a little bit of time off to celebrate today, but then they're going to turn to and get ready for the next one, which is coming up very soon. So we've got all the hardware we need, either here or en route, for the next mission, actually for the next 2 missions. And so we're going to be pumping them out as fast as NASA needs them and as fast as we can get them turned around. It looked like it was very clean from a pad standpoint today. I didn't see a fire start. Anybody? But that's not our plan, by the way. But we'll keep it going as fast as they need us and as fast as they can get us cargo to load. So I think that's a pretty reasonable summary of where we are. Again, I want to reiterate how happy the company is with how well the team has done with the partnership with all the other organizations involved. And I want to send greetings from David Thompson, who said to let you know that this is just the beginning of what we're going to be able to do to support human spaceflight. And we will continue for as long as the space station is there to do that. I also want to mention that David Lowe's family was here today. This was the voyage of the spaceship G. David Lowe, and it's David's chance to get to the space station, which we're all real happy about. And he was very much involved in the design of it, and then also in the design of this spacecraft that's going there. So we're happy that his family and his children could be here today to witness the liftoff. So with that, I'll look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will start off here at Wallops. We'll go to the phone lines after this. We also want to make sure everybody knows that we're taking questions on social media. Just use the hashtag AskNASA. So for those of you here in the room tweeting, make sure you advertise that to your followers, and we'll see if we can get the questions in here in just a few minutes. So let's start off down here with Philip.
Philip Sloss with NASASpaceflight.com for Mr. Culberson. Do you have any preliminary numbers on the launch vehicle performance and how close you came to hitting your target parameters?
It looked like the apogee and perigee were approximately 289 by 257. Our target was actually a couple of kilometers below that, so we're in really good shape.
And then can you compare the 2 launch campaigns, and perhaps the countdown today seemed very smooth, and obviously had a few more hiccups during the first launch campaign, and this one seemed to go much smoother.
Well, you know, I was impressed with the team the first time we launched, with how professional they were, how well trained, how polished. They sounded like they'd done this 100 times. Today was 101 times, and they sounded great. They handled the problems that came up very smoothly. They discussed options. They came up with suggestions and proposals through the launch director and the chief engineer, and I was very impressed with the professionalism and how they kept their cool, and particularly when we had a couple of things that looked like they were going to go out of limits late in the count, and they talked about whether they really would or not, assess the trends, and then also looked at how the limits would change as we went forward, and that kept us going. And the other thing we were working was the effects of the assessment of hazards to people on the ground, and we had to work that pretty hard right up till the end. As it turned out, we were go, and we had a confirmed go from the range and from the FAA, but it was tight, and those are the kind of things you have to work very hard and make sure you're looking at all possibilities. So again, I was very impressed with how the team worked together and for the same common goal.
Okay, we'll just keep working from left to right over here, and then we'll come over.
Jason Ryan with americaspace.com, and I got one question for Frank and one for Mr. Lightfoot. Frank, I want to touch on what he was saying for a second there. As we were listening, we heard that, okay, we're going to waive this, and this is going out of limits here, and maybe you could talk a bit about Orbital's team and how you can work these issues in real time, and also if there's something that's going off nominal, you can just find a way to work around it and still conduct launch like you did today.
Typically, when you're conducting an operation like this, you set your limits, your constraints, your flight rules up to handle all situations as if everything was going to happen at once, and that you're not going to have any time to work it. So you want to have a pre-planned limit to everything, a threshold, if you will. If you have time to analyze what's going on, you can say, okay, this limit was set for this particular reason, but everything else is in such good shape, and the rationale for this is X, Y, Z. We know that we can go a little bit further because we have margin in the system, so we're going to waive that official limit and reset it to a little bit more liberal one, or whatever the case may be. And so if the team has time to assess it and they have the ability to use the engineering judgment required, as well as what's really important, the background on understanding the system so they know how it really works, then you can trust them to make those kind of calls, and that's what we do on occasion.
And for Mr. Lightfoot, we know that NASA has been directed to hand over a lot of LEO services to commercial firms, while the agency focuses on deep space exploration for manned efforts. How do you view this morning's launch in terms of that two-part step that you guys are working on right now?
Well, as I said in my opening remarks, this is a critical milestone for us. It gets us. This is exactly what we've been planning on doing. We need our commercial partners to take over that low Earth orbit servicing and cargo delivery so that we can move on with the beyond low Earth orbit exploration pieces that we want to do so badly. But don't forget that the station is a key piece of that too. The International Space Station is where we're practicing techniques. We're practicing things that we're going to do to go beyond low Earth orbit as well. So not only is it them taking over the cargo delivery, it's also them enabling us to do the experiments and the science that we need to even take us further. So that's what's so exciting about it to us. And this gives us two providers. It's a big day for us with that strategy as we have going forward.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, hey, thanks everybody. This is one for Alan, I guess. Lately, NASA had double booked SpaceX and Orbital for a winter ISS cargo run. And I thought I just heard Frank say that they're going to be ready to go on December the 8th or December the 20th or so. Does that mean that Orbital is going to get the call and there won't be a SpaceX run in either December or January? Or can you give us a peek ahead at the logistics?
Can I comment on that real quick? We tell NASA when we're going to be ready for the next mission. Then they tell us when they want us to come. And that's
so
what's going on here.
What did Alan tell you?
They have, well, it's not. Go ahead.
Well, there's planning the traffic to the space station is quite a busy job. There are a lot of vehicles coming and going to the space station nowadays. So there are certain opportunities available. The slots are there, and the station will decide as it gets closer which vehicles are ready to go. I don't believe the final decision's been made yet, but there's certainly a window in December, and depending on how things go with both of our commercial providers, we'll make a call soon and decide which one we'll plan on sending for the next mission. But definitely a traffic model concern.
And so when can we expect an official all clear for Orbital after, now that this is the last COTS mission and they'll be starting their routine delivery soon, pending what exactly, when and who decides that?
Well, certainly we're waiting to see the finish of the mission and the demonstration of all the objectives that we talked about yesterday. But as soon as that's done, there are no more hurdles on our side. We will get a final report from Orbital within a few days after the end of the mission, which is going to be at the end of October now. So it's yet to be seen. There's still a lot to be done. There's still a lot of pretty significant challenges ahead to prove out. But we're hopeful everything's just going to go fine, and they'll be ready to go with their first service mission very soon.
Okay. Let's go down here to Ken, and then to Tarek, and then Irene.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Universe Today. I have a question for Frank and Alan. Let me ask you, Alan, first. So Now that they've been successful, at least with the launch, and the station is going to stay longer, when are you going to? What's your timetable for picking the next stage of commercial resupply missions? Because this one is going to end in around 2016, 2017. Yeah. Alan? It's got to be done, as we heard yesterday. It's got to be done not at the last second. It's got to be done a little ahead of time.
Right. So with their initial contracts, we awarded them through 2015, 2016 time frame. So we are right now getting ready to take our next steps toward awarding the follow-on contracts to that. And that's being run by the Space Station program. So they're in charge of that, and they're putting that together. And I expect very soon we're going to be hearing from the program and for their plans for continuing the cargo resupply in the later years.
And how late in December does the window last for either SpaceX or Orbital?
Our understanding is it lasts into January technically, and then there's a short break, and then there's a window in January also. I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but I think there's two fairly lengthy windows there.
All right. And for Frank, Orbital is controlling the vehicle now. Can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing between controlling it and approval you need from NASA to actually dock?
Yes. So we have like a standard spacecraft, we have a power generating system, our solar arrays. The solar arrays have deployed, and they are generating power. We're showing current and voltage. The propulsion system had to be charged by the pressurization system, and that has happened. The valves are all open, so we're ready to make the burns that are necessary to raise the orbit so that we can start chasing the ISS, and we will fly below the ISS until we catch up with it, and then as we approach, we'll get on the trajectory that's required to get in close proximity. We have a guidance navigation control system that had to be activated. Basically turn your computers on and make sure that they activate, and that the SIGI and our star tracker and our other sensors are actually feeding data to that to show us where we are, what attitude we're in, and how we're controlling. And that's all taking place now. So we'll be checking out all those systems and their backups over the next few hours. And then once we're comfortable with that, we'll continue with the flight plan to start approaching the station. And then as we get closer to the station, we'll be waiting for NASA's approval to come within various distances as we show the demonstrations that are required to meet the goals of this mission, which is a part of the demonstration, COTS demonstration. And then as we get on the R-bar, as I say, they have to give us the final go to go within the keep-out zone, if you will, so that we can make the final approach safely, and they can let us come aboard with confidence, and the crew can grab it.
Okay, Tarek and then Irene.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com. I think I actually have a follow-up for Frank. How large is your operations team controlling Cygnus at any given point around the clock?
I believe the typical number in mission control front room during a normal operation such as this is approximately 25 at most. And we have some people in the back rooms supporting from an engineering standpoint. And we have a handful of people in Houston in the customer support room there that are also supporting this. And then primarily for cargo transfer and keeping track of that.
And you mentioned the checks that you're going to be doing over the next 4 days to make sure that you're ready for the arrival on Sunday. And I'm wondering if any one of those checks is out of balance, can that delay the actual go-ahead for docking? And is there one that really kind of gives you the willies, that you have to get through? Thanks.
No, not really. There are lots of checks that have to occur, but we have backup systems. If one of the systems is not performing accurately, we can switch to another computer, we can switch to another sensor. So we've got the normal amount of redundancy to satisfy human spaceflight requirements. And so we actually have a pretty robust system for continuing the mission, even if we have a couple of failures, depending on where they are, what they are. As long as we don't have more than one or two failures in any one system, we actually can continue.
Irene Klotz with Reuters for Frank. Does Orbital have a business case for Antares and Cygnus beyond the resupply missions for NASA?
We don't have any orders for any additional missions beyond the 8 CRS. We're looking forward to additional CRS, and we're looking for other customers to use our spacecrafts and hardware.
And has Orbital bid on any satellite contracts yet with Antares?
With Antares?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe we've actually bid on any other than we are selected for the OSP and for the NLS contracts,
Thanks.
the IDIQ contracts. So
Thanks,
we're qualified for those.
And for Alan, I don't remember who mentioned earlier that NASA wants to see 2 or 3 flights of the upgraded Falcon before there's a CRS-3 is flown. Is that still the case? And do you, since Frank made a little comment about the cargo capacity, do you know if what the lift capacity is going to be for NASA on an upgraded Falcon?
Well, the manifest had SpaceX flying a couple missions before our next scheduled flight to the space station under the CRS contract. Whether those were firm agreements or not, or just generally the way it was laid out, I am not sure. But that's certainly the way it ended up being planned out. And the Falcon 9 had a substantial upgrade in the thrust capability of its new engines and increased tank size. And I don't have the specifics with me because I'm not tracking that program as closely as I used to when they were one of our partners. But they have substantial improved performance on the order. I think it's about 50%.
Are you saying it's not a requirement to have 2 or 3 flights of the upgraded?
I can't say for sure because that's an arrangement between the space station and their contractor, SpaceX. So I just don't know for sure.
Frank?
Frank Goring with Aviation Week. First for Frank Culbertson. Yesterday you said that you have hardware, at least in the loop or in the supply chain, for about 10 missions. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on that, and particularly with regard to the engines. I know that's a finite quantity, and if you could tell us how many you have, how many are in shape to fly, that sort of thing. And I have a follow-up for the NASA guys.
Well, Aerojet is the engine supplier, and they have identified 20 missions, or 20 engines total for the 10 missions that we are under contract with them for, and they are on track to deliver those. That's all we have a contract for right now. They have an additional 16 engines in stock, and if we are able to achieve additional orders, then I'm sure they'll come up with additional engines to outfit our rockets.
Thank you. And since I believe the launch pad is in sight of the top of the Washington Monument, I've got to ask a Washington question, and that is for Robert. Have you calculated the effect that a second round of sequestration would have on this commercial cargo program? And if so, what is it?
Well, I don't know if we've calculated it completely yet, Frank. We're dependent on basically letting the process play out, and we'll see where it goes. We've clearly done scenario planning. We do it every year. But since we don't know exactly what the scenario is going to be, we'll just see. And right now we got faith that they're going to work out the process up in D.C. and we'll adjust accordingly like we always do.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines real quick and go with James Dean with Florida Today. James, are you there?
Yes, thanks, Josh. A couple of questions for Mr. Culbertson. First, could you just please confirm that, if I understand correctly, if some small number of homes had to be evacuated to go ahead with the countdown at some point? Could you just confirm, how many that was and what the reason was?
There's a parameter called damage-focused overpressure concerns that we have to work with the range, depending on weather conditions, temperature inversions, things like that, where they predict that there's a certain chance, such as 1 in a million, that if we were to have an unfortunate event on liftoff, that the effects of that would reach a certain distance away from the launch pad or from the trajectory of the rocket. And so they calculate where the boundary of that 1 in a million chance of significant overpressure is. The overpressure means that it would be enough to shatter windows in a structure in a typical house. And so What they actually want people to do if they're inside that zone is to just go outside. I know it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but they don't want them inside looking out the windows if they had an overpressure like that. If you remember the meteor that came in over Russia last year, earlier this year, there was the overpressure from the sonic booms that caused the injuries, breaking the windows and injuring people inside. So it's the same type of concern. It's a very low likelihood, of course, but it is something that the FAA and the range do calculate, and then we have to satisfy, or that condition has to be satisfied. It's not something we can actually control. There were some structures that were periodic during the analysis of the conditions based on the weather balloons that were in and out of that zone. And what they do is they go and, if we end up in that condition, they go and check those houses to see if anybody's home. So I don't know if they have ever actually asked anybody to go outside or not, or if they just verified that everybody was at work or school and there was no concern. But we did have that mitigation going on just in case at the last minute we were still red. As it turned out, we ended up being green on the last balloon, and everything would have been okay whether people were in the structures or not. But it's not like they had to evacuate the area or run to some cover or something. They just had to go outside if they were home.
Okay, thank you. And you've been referencing in the briefings all the launch activity going on around the world, and of course that included one just earlier this morning by the Air Force from down here at the Cape. I was just curious if you ever remembered or know of two East Coast launches going off like this on the same day of orbital launches of this magnitude.
I'm not aware of two on the same day, because you can't launch two out of the Cape range in one day. And there may have been sounding rockets going on the same day. In fact, they've launched 5 sounding rockets in one day from here. They're much smaller, of course, but I think things are going to continue to be busy as long as the government keeps going.
All right. Is that it, James?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Let's come back here in the room. What else do we have? Let's go all the way back there in the back.
Doug Money, TMC. Frank, can you talk a little bit about international participation? I heard that there were at least 2 ambassadors from different countries that witnessed the launch today, and various other dignitaries, I guess, within the room, perhaps.
Actually, Barry may be able to help a little more on that. I wasn't involved in the guest operations. I was busy, but we did have a lot of international participation and a lot of international visitors. As you know, our spacecraft is multinational, and we actually pride ourselves in being able to work with all types of organizations and people from around the world that provide products for spaceflight. And we try to integrate whoever has the best of what we need. Our partners from Thales Alenia, who built our pressurized cargo module, are here. Our partners from the Ukraine, who designed and built the core for the first stage, were here, and I understand their ambassador finally made it through the traffic last night and got here. We had some representatives from Russia, from Kuznetsov, who built the engines originally, and I don't know if their ambassador came or not. Did he, Barry? Okay. At one time he was planning to. We had the Netherlands Space Office and Dutch Space here. And we had representatives from Japan, of course, who provided the proximity system. I'm not aware of any other ambassadors beside the Ukrainian, but we did have a good representation. We had a lot of Americans here too, by the way.
Okay, again, we're taking questions on social media. Just use the hashtag #AskNASA. We'll try to get into the briefing. Let's go to Mr. Townsend and see what we've got.
Sure. We've got 2 questions that are pretty much interrelated here. The first comes from user Miner17. What is the most important cargo aboard the spacecraft? And as a secondary question from T. Balsamo, do astronaut family members get to send any items on Cygnus?
NASA controls the manifest for that, and I suspect, based on my own experience, that the family members were allowed the opportunity to load some personal things for the crew members that are up there. You get a couple of pounds worth that you can put on. It's usually books or DVDs or letters, that sort of thing, and usually some snacks if they know you need something. And yeah, there probably was some of that on there. We don't know all the details of what NASA loaded in the bags. we're just a carrier. But yeah, I'm sure that there were some special things. I don't know how to characterize what the most important cargo was on there.
All the cargo.
Actually, in my opinion, the most important thing was David Lowe's name that was on the hatch, and we're happy that that was able to go to orbit. Look forward to the station crew seeing it.
Wonderful. From Twitter user Paul Robinson 59, for NASA, will Orbital and SpaceX be performing different mission types to the ISS, or are they interchangeable?
Go ahead.
Well, let's see. The cargo carrier spacecraft are different in capabilities. So SpaceX has the ability to carry up mass cargo and return cargo from the International Space Station. Orbital has actually a larger pressurized volume, so they're able to carry a larger quantity of less dense cargo if needed. So the missions are optimized based on the capabilities that the carriers have. And another capability SpaceX has is the ability to bring up external cargo. That is equipment that is used outside of the living spaces in the modules, equipment that can be used outside on the truss for replacement equipment if needed and things like that. So, yeah, they're different in overall capabilities, and depending on our needs, we'll manifest that accordingly.
Wonderful. Last question here from Twitter user Spacecom. The launch anchor said something about a mixture being nearly nominal. Was that fuel, and is that a serious variation from nominal?
I don't remember that exact comment, but the mixture was what? Nearly nominal?
Nearly nominal.
That means it was pretty good. No, everything looked really good. Seriously, not to be facetious. The mixture ratio in the engines was as it should be. It always varies a little bit. You want to try to be as close to guidance as you can, but again, it varies, and you're correcting back. And Mike was right. We were just about nominal. That's like almost perfect.
All right, back here in the middle.
Matthew Ballin, NASA social participant. Karen Nyberg had tweeted at the Orbital Twitter account saying that she was looking forward to the arrival of Cygnus. Was she in position to view the launch today?
I doubt it.
They were
I'm
over
pretty
the
sure
Indian Ocean. So.
They were pretty far around because we have 4 days of rendezvous activities. That means you're going to be chasing for quite a while, so you typically start well behind. If it was going to be a same-day rendezvous, you would probably launch pretty close to underneath them. And in fact, I was fortunate enough to see a Progress launch that was coming to us one time and watched it as it ascended into orbit. So sometimes it's by coincidence you get to see that. And in fact, one time I was sitting on the launch pad and I saw the station go over us as we were getting ready to rendezvous. So these kind of things happen, but it's not a given necessarily.
Okay, back here.
Hi, thank you. Bob Kovacs with Government Video Magazine. First of all, I want to congratulate Orbital Sciences and NASA on it was a fabulous launch. It was just wonderful to watch. And I'm glad you paid extra for the fantastic weather. It was, that was really a joy. Now, I was at the Laddie launch a couple of weeks, 10, 11 days ago. Very nice launch as well. And a photograph came out of that a few days later of a frog being caught in the blast of the launch. And that got me thinking about, there's a lot of wildlife out here. Does NASA and or Orbital Science, since it's your mission, do you do anything to try to mitigate damage to wildlife prior to a launch like this?
We feel really badly if any wildlife is damaged by our launch.
But you don't do any. You don't take any measures. You don't take any measures to try to scare birds or animals away or anything like that.
Well, we make a really loud noise right before liftoff to try to scare them away. No, there's really not much you can do, and most of them are small critters, and it's really hard to hurt them. And if you've ever been to a shuttle launch shortly after liftoff, it's a real mess around there. So it's not nearly as bad here. But it's a fact of life that there are wildlife. But the site has been evaluated from an environmental impact standpoint, and actually I don't think there is that much damage because of the way our flame trench is pointed. and the amount of water suppression we have, I doubt that there is a whole lot of peripheral damage or collateral damage in the vicinity. The Minotaur had a different pad arrangement, and so its blast pattern would have been different than what we have with the flame trench. I did try to arrange for a couple of things to be caught in it, but I don't think it worked out. Rubber.
All right, right in here in the middle.
Barbara Buckner, NASA Social Media. With previous launches, COTS with SpaceX, they sent up some additional cargo of their own that wasn't NASA. Did Orbital Sciences happen to have anything additional to NASA's payload?
Actually, we were given an allotment of things that we could send up on behalf of the company if we wanted to be able to share things such as pictures or orbital-specific things with our employees that worked on this mission. So we have a very small container of some patches, or rather stickers, that are associated with the mission that hopefully we'll be able to get back if SpaceX will agree to bring them back for us.
Okay, a couple more back here. I'll see you all the way back there at the back, right there.
Jeff Goldstein, Center Director, National Center for Earth and Space Science Education. Thought I might point out, based on the last question, that there were 7 experiments designed by student research teams on the vehicle, a culmination of 7,000 students working on microgravity research across the country. Thought you might speak to the fact that the aspirations of the next generation of scientists and engineers were on this historic launch.
Well, I mean, for us at NASA, I mean, the inspiration factor for what we do is a key piece of our mission. We encourage that. We try to do that as much as we can. I personally know that I have universities calling me constantly now, small sats. The things that you think about, they even have even smaller ones. I'll call them tiny sats. I've seen them; they're tiny. These are what people are working on at universities, and they're inspired because we're actually starting to work on those kind of things. It's no longer, and we're giving them the avenue to do that. You know, you got folks like Orbital that have a tremendous outreach program. You got SpaceX has the same thing, and it does bring a different group of people to be inspired to be in this business and bring them along. That's what we want to do. I know personally, you know, I got involved in that. You know, when I was a younger engineer, but back then it was more of the bigger stuff, the engines and the launch vehicles. Now we're getting into payloads. We're getting into the whole research part of this for microgravity. It's another key thing about the space station. We're using the station to do that. We're bringing up student experiments all the time. So it's a great point, and I think, to me, this is what we do. We're building that next generation of explorers. We need them. You know, we need them to be sitting up here in 20 years and talking about their experiments and their missions that they took on, all because they were inspired by something like this or a small experiment that they were able to get onto the space station. That's part of what's so exciting about all this that we do.
If I could add to that just a little bit, I knew there were student experiments on board. I didn't know it was that many. I'm glad to hear that, and particularly that there's that many students involved. I feel very strongly that students will follow the example of the generation that goes ahead of them, especially if we do things successfully. And it's Tony, I said put it on that screen. That's weird, but
yeah,
not making that big a statement, but science, technology, engineering, math, I think, are the keys to the future success of the United States. And our ability to motivate students today, young and older students, to be interested in that and to take that challenge of staying with math when it gets hard, of reading about science as you learn to read, and then being curious about the rest of the world, makes a big difference in how successful we're going to be as a country and how successful that generation is going to be. And they won't learn that until they're our age. We in industry and in NASA work really hard to try to get the word out of what we're doing. And we do press conferences like this so that that's part of the education process. And then there's Leland Melvin and the guys are working really hard to get the word out, as are Barry Benesky and the people in our company, to make sure people know what we're doing and why and how they can be involved in it. But you all are a key part of that too, and we depend on you to report it accurately and enthusiastically and in a way that inspires people to read more about it and learn more about it. So I really appreciate so many of you being here today and listening to what we have to say. And I am confident that the message you're going to pass on is going to reflect exactly what we've said and is going to be positive, motivational, and supportive of what we're doing as a country in space flight. Human space flight itself depends on humans being involved. And we need your support in that also. And when it's hard, you got to stick with us. When the budget comes down, you got to stick with us. And when there's a lot of other things going on, you need to put us in perspective, because we're not always the most important thing that's going on. But come back to us when things calm down. This is the future of the country, and continuing our presence on the International Space Station is critical to the United States maintaining its leadership in space. If we give up on the space station and we quit sending cargo and we don't support people going up there and we unman it, it'll be 2 generations before we get Americans into space again on a regular basis. So we have to keep it going. It's that important. If we want to go beyond low Earth orbit, go back to the moon, go to Mars, go to asteroids, whatever, we have to keep the space station going, because that's where we're learning how to live in space, how to survive a difficult environment, and how to manage it. Managing it, the operations, is one of the hardest things. It's exciting to go do it, but we as a country have to know how to manage it cost effectively, efficiently, and safely. And so we really appreciate you all getting that message out there. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on that big a soapbox.
Let's take a couple more, then we'll wrap up. Let's see if there was one back here. No? Anybody else? Down here, Tarek.
Thank you. Tarek Malik again from Space.com. I just had one more for Frank. You mentioned that the team's going to take some time off to kind of get their bearings and then turn around and get ready for the next one. Is there a party tonight? Champagne?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, there'll actually probably be a couple. You know, Ron Gravy's is leading the group that in the program that's managed by Mike Pinkston that has done a fantastic job of juggling a lot of things, juggling a lot of resources, and getting us to this point. We had key people like Mike Laidley as the launch director and Mike Dorsch as the chief engineer during the countdown, as well as all the other team that had come in at dark 30 this morning to make it happen. They've worked really hard, and they deserve some time off, and they deserve some celebration, so I hope they have a chance to do that. In fact, I think there's a little celebration going on right now that I'm missing, so when we wrap up, I'm out of here.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we will wrap up. Our next time we see you will be from Mission Control Houston. Our live coverage will begin at 3:30 a.m. Central Time, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday morning. And, of course, between now and then, you can follow along online by going to www.nasa.gov/orbital or www.nasa.gov/station. So, again, we'll see you on the 22nd at 3:30 a.m. Central Time, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time, live here on NASA Television. Congratulations to the team. We'll see you in a few days.